Welcome to Leonard Springs Nature Day. We hope you're ready to watch and learn as we explore our local environments. Remember, you must follow along in your student journals and use the materials provided in your Nature Day activity kits to complete today's lesson. Let us start by defining the ecosystem we are studying. A wetland is a place where the land is covered by water, either permanently or seasonally. Marshes and ponds, the edge of a lake or ocean, low-lying areas that frequently flood, all are examples of wetlands. These habitats provide a number of ecosystem services, including water purification, carbon storage, stormwater management, shoreline stabilization, as well as support a variety of plants and animals. In fact, wetlands are considered the most biologically diverse of all ecosystems, serving as home to a wide range of wildlife. For the remainder of today's lesson, we are going to focus on the species that inhabit our wetlands in Indiana. To learn more, let's visit one of our naturalists in a local wetland habitat.
Hi, and welcome to the Wetland Station here at Leonard Springs. My name's Kate. I am a Natural Resources Education Specialist with the City of Bloomington Parks and Recreation, and I'm here to guide you through the Wetland Station. Now, here at the Wetland Station, we're going to be talking about several different things. We're going to be going over our wetland, what it is, why it's important. We're going to be going over the creature that helps make our wetland, the beaver. We're going to be looking at what things are needed in a creature's habitat. And finally, we'll be looking at how to differentiate different species of animals apart from each other, focusing mostly on birds. For this station, you're going to need your journal and your pencil and maybe some drawing materials. So the pages you will be looking at are pages 6, 7, 8, and 9. On the first page of your journal, we're going to be looking at what a wetland is. So a wetland is an area that is saturated with water, meaning it has so much water that the water is either at, slightly above, below, or slightly above the soil. So you can see our wetland behind us right now. We have some standing water, as well as further in, we have some grassy areas where it doesn't look like any water, but if you stepped on the grasses, you might feel some water around your feet. There are many different types of wetlands. We're focusing on our freshwater Indiana wetlands. A wetland has several important functions that we as people and the environment benefits from. A wetland soaks up a whole lot of water, and that can be used as a resource when we might go a bit without some rain. We haven't had rain in a bit right now, but there's still a lot of water in our wetland, so creatures can get drinks from the wetland and plants can continue to grow around it as the water is wicked around from that wetland. Another thing that our wetland can help take care of is it can help clean our water supply. As water goes through our streams and down into our wetlands, it's slowed down. Now, if the water's moving really fast and you drop something in it, it might bring that dirt or that leaf downriver with it. But if the water is slowed down, that gives whatever is dropped in that water time to rest down to the bottom and break down. So our wetland is a very good filter for our water because it makes the water slow down and drop everything that it's carrying and filter through all of those plant roots and all of that sediment, and it will come out cleaner on the other side. Another part of the hydrology, so the water part of our wetlands, is how well it soaks up that water after a rain. So as well as keeping the water longer when it hasn't rained very much, when we get a lot of rain in, it'll soak up a lot of that rain through its sediments and through its plants so that the downstream river isn't flooded. This can really help with our long, lengthy storms here in Indiana. One of my favorite parts about a wetland is how it can be a nursery environment for a lot of different creatures. So if you were to look in a wetland, maybe in its water, you might see a lot of baby insects, little bitty fish, or you might see birds around it getting those insects and fish for their own young. So a wetland is a haven for wildlife because it supports a variety of it. If we just had forests, we might not have as much diverse species. But because we have a forest and wetland, things that might live in the forest but feed off the wetland, or vice versa, can live in the same place. Things that could live in our wetland environment include some herons, our beavers that we're going to talk about in a little bit, a lot of insects such as dragonflies and mayflies, as well as creatures that like to be in and out of the water, such as our amphibians and reptiles, like our turtles and our frogs. As we talk about wetland as a habitat, we want to make sure that you know what the 4 parts of a habitat are. So think of yourself as an animal. In order to survive, you need 4 main things. You need food so that you have energy. You need water so that you can stay hydrated. You need shelter to protect yourself from the environment or things around you. And you need space. Space to do what you want to go towards your food or your water and to stretch out. So in our environment, we have the water and the wetland. Things might get food from the sun if they're plants, or they can get it from our cattails and our jewelweed or other minnows and crustaceans. And they're going to get shelter. They could make a dam, or they could make a den like our muskrats and our beavers, or they could make a nest like our birds. And we have lots of space out here where the birds can fly and the beavers can swim and our crustaceans to roam. The animal that we mentioned earlier that is especially important to our wetlands here in Indiana and the Midwest, Northeast, and a lot of parts of America is our beaver. Now, our beaver is a mammal that is in the rodent family. It has big, sharp incisors, and that's what they use to carve through the wood and knock down trees. Our beavers are especially important in our wetland because they're what can create our wetlands. We created a dam, and that started the wetland area. However, since that dam has been knocked down, the wetland has been continued by some of our beavers. Recently, a beaver made a small dam over in this area, which was then silted over when water came along and dropped what it was carrying until things grew on it, and that has changed the structure of our water. This didn't used to be continuously standing water, but now it has been because the beaver changed the shape of how the water moves. And that's what beavers have been doing for a long time. They tend to back up streams and creeks so that the water pools and slows down because the beaver like to be in that type of habitat. Because of this, beavers are known as a keystone species. A keystone species is a species that affects the environment in a way that creates a habitat for other species. So without the beaver, other species wouldn't be here. There wouldn't be cattails. There wouldn't be a swampy wetland area without our beaver. As you can see, when it becomes a wetland, these trees behind die because their roots are flooded. However, if a beaver then abandons their dam and it breaks down over time, the wetland can eventually dry out, become a meadow area, and then, over time, a young forest, and then a full forest. Each of these stages is important to our environment because, like we talked about, not every animal can survive in a forest, not every animal can survive in a wetland. Oftentimes, they need multiple kinds of environments, and sometimes they might just need one that isn't there at the moment. So our beavers are important in keeping that cycle of forest to wetland to forest in check. Let's look a little closer at our beaver. So we talked about the head of the beaver and how it has these sharp incisors for taking down trees and chewing on wood. You can tell that the beaver is an herbivore because its front incisors are far front, and then its back teeth are flat molars for grinding things up. Now, a beaver will often eat some of our wetland plants, such as cattails or water lilies, but the majority of what it eats is actually the inner bark of wood and trees and other saplings. So you may see a beaver chew down an entire tree like this, but it's not going to eat that inside dead wood. That's not nutritious for it. What it will eat is lots of small saplings and twigs where it can chew off all of the bark and the inside of the bark, which is where it has its nutrients for it. Other parts of a beaver that you may be familiar with is its hide. So its very soft top coat can repel water and was often used in hats. The front part of the beaver, with its eyes, they'll float above the water as it swims. And most notably, the beaver has a large paddle-like tail which it can use to go through the water and help build its dams. The last part of the wetland station is to talk about how to identify what animal or what species you're looking at. One of the most common ones that we see in our wetlands are different types of birds. So we're going to focus a little bit more on birds. 4 ways that you can figure out what animal you're looking at is based on its size. For instance, a finch is a lot smaller than our great blue heron. You look at colorations and markings, whether it's a goldfinch or a blue jay, whether it might have a mask, dark spots over its eyes or not. You want to look at how it's behaving. Is it a woodpecker knocking on a tree, or is it soaring high and steady? The last part is you want to make sure that you know what birds are in the area you're in. So look at what habitat you're in. Wetland birds will probably be around wetlands, whereas our desert birds probably won't show up here. Now it's your turn. Go out into your backyard, your neighborhood, or around your school and try to find an animal that you're not familiar with and figure out what it is. You want to be looking for our 4 parts. And that is the size, the coloration and shape. So this one might have, the red beak and the black mask. You want to look at its behavior. This duck would be floating on the water. And you want to look at where it is. I probably won't find it in a dry environment. So go out and see what you can do and record it in your journal. See if you can figure out what those specific names are, whether that's the common name or the scientific name.
At this point of the lesson, you should have completed pages 6 through 9 in your student journal. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.